Hello, everyone. How are we doing today? Doing all right? Thumbs up. We're alive. Good, good, good. So today we have Bobby and Eric from Body Central joining us to talk about some sprint progressions that we can work on at home. So that way when we go onto the field, it won't be too taxing on us, and how to do a great warm up so that way we're prepared for the game. If you guys have any questions, just go ahead and unmute your mic and ask at any time. And let's get rolling. Eric, want to introduce yourself?
Yes, absolutely. So my name is Dr. Eric Benninger. I am the clinic manager at the Harrison location, which is East Tucson, Harrison, and Old Spanish Trail. And I'm actually going to be doing the second part of the presentation, talking about the FIFA 11 Plus program. We'll be going into that a little bit later. But for now, I'll pass it over to Bobby to begin the presentation.
My name's Dr. Bobby Graxton, and I'm actually pretty new to Tucson. I got here close to 7 weeks ago, and I'm a physical therapist at Body Central, and I'm the head athletic trainer for the FC Tucson Pro team. So a lot of the things that we're going to be discussing today are going to be consistent with some of the things that we're doing actually with the pro team. One of the things I wanted to start off with and touch base on was, what is it going to look like for everyone, for the athlete to return to their sport in the midst of and after this global pandemic, because this is, as we all know, unprecedented times for many. And, I've talked to, some colleagues that work in other professional sports, and everybody's trying to figure out, what exactly needs to be done to make sure that the athletes, whether it's, professional athletes, and in my opinion, it's more paramount for the youth athlete because of other variables in play with the youth athlete and increase at risk for injury. So with that being said, as we all know, sports and certain movements in sports place tremendous stresses on our bodies and on the tissues of our bodies. And one can't simply ask their body to do something or ask the muscle to do something or ask a joint to do something that it isn't prepared to do or handle, because that's how injuries happen. One thing that I do want to say is I've been working on some videos, and we recorded them last week with some of our professional players of some good movements, some good ways to load the lower extremity and the legs at home with body weight exercises, and we'll be rolling those out soon. For parents and athletes and coaches to have access to. And a lot of these movements are going to be movements that we're doing right now with our pro guys. Additionally, one thing that I am going to talk about this evening are sprint workouts that can be done at home that are soccer specific, because it's fine that we do these lower extremity loading exercises, we do core exercises, but if you haven't utilized your fast twitch muscle fibers, which are responsible for running really, really fast and sprinting, then you're definitely going to get injured. It's not a question of if it's going to happen, it's when. So I'm going to talk about three, and I'll have a slide up, so feel free when I share my screen to take a screenshot or take a picture of the screen with the sprint workouts when they pop up on the screen, because there's going to be three, and so you can divide it up Monday, Wednesday, Friday, whatever may fit for your schedule. So with that being said, I'm going to share my screen, and excuse me if I mess this up. I'm still trying to learn how to use Zoom correctly. So. All right. Hang on 1 second. Okay, here we go. All right. All right, so can everyone see this? So the first one I'm gonna talk about is just a sprint back pedal repeats. So this is a good drill for defenders, because when you're having to, look around, look at the field, see where the ball is, and try to get ready for your next move. It's gonna, like it says in the description, reinforce proper acceleration mechanics when you're changing directions and changing to different ways and different directions to sprint. So here, the first bullet, just set up 5 cones in a straight line, 5 yards apart. And obviously, we probably don't all have cones at home, but if it's a cup or whatever you can use, so you can have that feedback, that visual feedback. So you're going to stand at cone 1, you're going to lean and sprint to cone 3, and then you're going to backpedal to cone 2, and you're going to keep everything tight, stay low, and you're going to have the weight on the balls of your feet, and you're going to change direction by driving with your legs and pushing into a full forward sprint to cone 4. So then you're going to backpedal to cone 3, and you're going to change direction one last time and sprint to the last cone. So you don't need a whole lot of room for this, because it's only 5-yard intervals, so 20 altogether. But this is something easily that can be done at home, and I would recommend repeating this this workout 6 to 8 times. So here's the next one. So this is just a push-up start. So it's gonna develop some leg drive, and sometimes obviously in our sport you go in for a tackle, so you have to come off the ground, and you got to be prepared to go back to a sprint. So you're just going to set up 2 cones 20 yards apart, lie down on your stomach at cone 1 with your hands in a push-up position, and then whatever that cue may be for you at home, you're going to get up and sprint past the second cone, and then making sure that you're staying low and you're keeping everything tight. You're going to jog back to the beginning for recovery, and this one as well, you will perform 6 to 8 times. So here's the third one. It's just a flying sprint. So this is going to work on acceleration from a jog. So obviously, everyone's specific with the sport of soccer. So there's going to be some times when you're in a full out sprint, and there's going to be times in which you're doing more of an active recovery, which may be a jog during the match. So here you're going to set up 2 cones 20 yards apart, and a third 10 yards past cone 2, and you're going to stride about 75% of whatever your full speed may be from cone 1 to 2. And then you're going to decelerate or fall to your acceleration angle and push to full speed before passing to the third cone. You're going to jog back to the beginning for recovery, and you're going to perform this one for 6 to 8 reps. And also, you see that last bullet there for variety. You may integrate the shuffle instead of the striding out. So let me. All right. So if anybody wanted a copy of those sprint workouts, or you didn't have the opportunity to take a screenshot or take a picture of those sprint workouts, just let me know, and I can put those back on the screen. But again, those are, nothing's going to mimic a true training session, and nothing's going to mimic a true match. So we all have to do the best that we can to try to stress the tissues appropriately, so our athletes are, not so prone to injury when they're coming back out of this this pandemic. So I'm going to open the floor for questions if anybody has any. And I can email these to Walter so he can email those out and make those available to everyone as well.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I know we were going to talk about preparation, and maybe Eric is going to cover this a little bit, but there's some, and he's going to do, I think, a little more of the detail, but
Yeah.
just getting athletes ready and prepared to be able to take the stresses of getting back, because you know what's going to happen. They're going to think, oh yeah, I've done something, and then they're going to go out there and they're going to strain something, and hopefully not anything worse.
Yeah. So Eric definitely he's gonna go over the FIFA 11, and he has a good visual for that. That's gonna be available to everyone, which is gonna be a good warm up, and it's gonna be a necessary warm up before you perform these sprint workouts. So what Eric's gonna discuss is gonna be a great complement to what I just discussed. And like I mentioned previously, I have some videos of some movements that we've been doing with our pro guys, and I'm a big believer in three-dimensional movements and three-dimensional loading, because we as human beings through daily life and athletes, we don't just move in one plane or one dimension. We move in 3 dimensions. So I have a bunch of fun movements that are body weight that will be made available here soon once everything's finished being edited. That will show some really good ways to load the lower extremities 3-dimensionally in a safe manner. So everybody's ready to get back to play, and everybody's healthy. So I guess if no one else has any further questions, we can move on with your part, Eric.
Thank you, Bobby. So as already mentioned, I'm going to go over a program called the FIFA 11. It was developed several years ago through FIFA. They've done multiple research studies on it to determine what is its benefits. Is it actually doing what they want it to do? And generally, the studies are showing that it's reducing specifically ACL injuries, ACL tears, by 25 to 50%, as well as improving the ability for an athlete to return back after some sort of minor injury, strain, sprain, something like that, within about 30% quicker. So great benefits as a warm-up, and also research showing great benefits to improve the ability of the athlete to tolerate the normal load of a soccer match, of a soccer training, without the risk of injury. So I am also going to share my screen here. Great visual for this poster. It's designed as a 20-minute warm-up split into 3 parts. So ideally, we're going to do the parts in order. They're essentially running, so kind of jogging exercises going through different motions. So there's regular jogging, and these are things that you might already do in warm-up before training or before a match. So running with your hip out and hip in, so getting some adductor lengthening, some abductor lengthening, going in circles. So like Bobby's mentioning, moving in multiple planes, and then mimicking a little bit of contact. So one big thing that sometimes people neglect is the ability for the body to adjust what it has to do based on some sort of external load. So when you're running against somebody and you go shoulder to shoulder, your body has to react differently than if you're just running in a straight line or cutting on your own. So those are important movements to just get the body used to, and have the brain and the muscles and the joints all on the same page as to how we need to stabilize during these specific movements. And then the last one is quick feet, quick change of direction. So that's the running one. Those are all, I think, pretty normal exercises that one would do in a normal warm-up before a match or training. The next part, the strength and plyometric part, seems to be, from my experience, a little bit less emphasized during warm-up. So they have actually several different exercises, so I believe 6 different exercises each of them having 3 levels. So the idea of these is that you always start at level 1. You do level 1 until it becomes very easy and then move on to the next level. So we're not overstressing the body, we're allowing the body to adapt to a little bit lower loads and then building up as those muscles get stronger, as those joints get stronger, as the body can tolerate those things. So we'll kind of go through these individually one by one. Some of these are exercises that you've probably seen or done before. Some of them may be a little bit new. So initially starting with the bench, most people refer to it as a plank. They have a recommended amount, 20 to 30 seconds. Again, it's always going to be based on the athlete's tolerance. So if you normally do planks every day, then a 20-second plank is not going to challenge you enough to force your body to adapt. So you might want to do a little bit of a longer hold or more sets. Also going to depend on time. So for these, if you're doing these at home before, let's say you're going to do Bobby's sprint program or just on the day off, if you only have 10 minutes, then obviously you're not going to be able to do everything for the set amount of time. You could kind of mix and match in that way. However, level 2, then we're alternating legs. So lifting one leg and then the other, which is going to force a little bit more pelvic stability, a little bit more core strength, and a little bit more of the back of the hip muscles to kick on. Whereas level 3, we're then holding. So now we have an endurance activation of the core and hip muscles for the duration. Second, we're working on the hip abductors, which are the outside of the hip muscles. These muscles are super, super important for anything we do on one leg. So think about running, landing, jumping, cutting. Those muscles are one of the biggest and most important stabilizers during those movements. And often something that we see in the general population is neglected because we do a lot of forward and backwards movements, not as much side to side. So we have our normal sideways bench or side plank with the knee. Then to make it harder, you go onto your foot. And then the last one is going onto your foot with the top leg also being raised. Again, dependent on prior strength or abilities, these can be modified for repetitions or time frames. The next exercise, commonly referred to as the Nordic hamstrings. Again, hamstrings super important, specifically for sprinting. So sprinting is actually shown to be one of the best exercises for hamstrings, but also if your hamstrings are not strong enough to tolerate that acceleration, there's an increased risk of that hamstring strain, which nobody wants. In terms of the progressions on this one, fairly simple. It's mostly just your increasing repetitions. The drawback to this exercise is you do need somebody there with you. So a parent, a friend, a sibling to hold the ankles. But apart from that, everything else in this, well, most everything else in this section just requires one person. So you could do on your own while your parents are making dinner or something along those lines. Next, we're working on a little bit of balance. So again, balance on one leg, super important because we do work on one leg so often on the pitch. So initially just working on standing on one leg, holding a ball, moving the ball side to side between your legs can allow for a little bit more stress. Second, throwing a ball with a partner. So another one that requires a partner, the ball toss is actually going to, again, force your brain and your muscles to have to adapt to a stress that you're not sure where the ball's going to exactly go to. Just like in a game where you don't know, is that shot going to get deflected? Which way are they actually going to pass the ball? How do I have to react to that specific stimulus? And then the last progression for this one is, again, simulating the normal contact of a sport. So you and a partner, you're just pushing each other around a little bit, each trying to maintain your balance on one leg. Exercise number, I believe, 5 for strength is a little bit more functional, closed chain, full lower extremity, full leg movements. So you have your normal squat with a toe raise, pretty self-explanatory, walking lunges. Most people I'm sure have done or seen these. And then the most challenging one is the one-legged squat, which again, working on one leg is really, really good, really, really specific for athletes. And number 6, now we're working on a little bit more dynamic, a little bit of jumping. So initially starting jumping up and down, secondarily jumping side to side, and then we have the box jumping, which is multiple directions. So side to side, back, forth, diagonal, just to get, once again, get the body moving in different directions. Whenever we all know when we're on the pitch that the ball can go anywhere. We never know where we're going to have to move to make the next play or prevent the other team from making the next play. So that change of direction is really important. And then part 3 can kind of go into a little bit more of sprinting. It's not actually sprinting. We're looking at 75, 80% pace. But now that we've got the muscles going, we've got the mobility going, we're getting into some of the more sport-specific pace. So 75, 80% just running back and forth across the pitch, across the yard, down the street, whatever you have. Hopefully not through the house. Parents normally don't like that. Bounding is essentially running with high knees. So almost imagine like you're a gazelle or some sort of other animal that kind of hops when they run. And then the last one is kind of a plant and pivot. So again, getting the ligaments, getting the muscles used to those cutting and change of direction movements. So generally, ideally, this is going to take 20 minutes out of your day. You could do it daily. Great to do before you actually go into sprinting, or if you're going to go out and kick around with your friends a little bit, start to warm up with this. It's going to be good for 1, prepping you for that day, and then 2, making sure that you're ready for whenever you do get back into season, whenever you are training multiple times a week and having potentially a tournament with multiple games, and all those muscles and ligaments and tendons have to be ready for that load. And let's see if I can share. So that is pretty much the run through of the FIFA 11 Plus program. And I do have a link that goes through each of the exercises in specific details, as well as some common mistakes that are made during those exercises form-wise. So I'll share that with Walter, and I'll allow him to disperse it to the different teams and players as well. So at this time, I will open up to any questions on the FIFA 11 program.
Eric, I have a question.
Yes.
The FIFA 11, outside of the FIFA 11, are there like small exercises or stretching that players can do on their own, if they have a few minutes, I don't know, playing video games, watching TV, that they can do to help them kind of prepare, again, a little more stress load, getting ready for eventually getting out on the field?
Yes, absolutely. So any type of movement that you could do on one leg is going to be great, and it can provide a lot of stress quickly. So if you're playing video games and you just do that while standing on one leg, if you're going through a commercial and you just go through a few squats or do some calf raises, anything that's getting the lower extremity going, specifically in standing, with your feet on the ground, is going to be great to start to allow those tissues to get used to that movement. In regards to stretching, specifically more dynamic stretching. So depending on obviously the size of the house, if you're able to do some high knees just in the living room or do some hamstring kicks, things like that, those are going to once again prepare the body and the muscles to stretch at that and create tension at that load that is normal for a soccer player, as opposed to the static stretching where it's not actually how the muscles work during the game. Static stretching, don't get me wrong, does have its place. However, dynamic stretching is generally superior in preparation for performance.
And I'll piggyback on that too. There again, a lot of the videos that we will be rolling out here very soon are all movements that are going to complement the FIFA 11 and are movements that will be able the kids will be able to do in their living rooms. They can use the couch to prop their leg up to do single leg squats with rotations, all those things.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And I see a question in chat from Lucia. Do the exercises help players with balance? Yes, absolutely. So not all of them are balance focused. However, any of them that are with contact, so the running with shoulder contact, which would be number 5 on the running exercises. All 3 of the single leg balanced ones, which would be number 10 for the strengthening. And then also the exercises in number 11 and 12 all improve balance in the athlete, specifically with some sort of contact or ability to have to adjust to your surroundings. Any other questions at the moment?
Sorry, I had to walk away, but are there, I think Walter asked this question, but if you had to pick from each of the groups specific things that they can do if they don't have 20 minutes, did we already go over that? Sorry, I had to go check on the kids.
That's a good question. That's a good question.
We did a little bit, but so I would specifically say in terms of running, so the part 1, any of these in isolation are going to be good. So just a normal jog, just a little bit of side-to-side movement, a little bit of jumping, a little bit of forwards and backwards are all okay in isolation. In regards to the strength, plyometrics, and balance, it would depend on the area that the athlete is in. So if they're at home, it might be a little bit harder to do the jumping, or if they're in a small space. I have a preference. I would say I would not favor only one. So if you only had, let's say, 5 minutes every day of the week, I would do a different 5 minutes of each of the exercises, so we're still getting stress on each of the areas, as opposed to only do 5 exercises every day. Would you go with that 20-minute warm-up for a U11 or younger kids? So that is a very good question. I know, or I have heard of, but I have not looked into detail. There is a FIFA 11 kids program. I'm not sure how much that differs from this program, but I could also give Walter the information on that, and he could disperse it to the younger coaches and players, and hopefully that will answer that question. Bobby, if you know anything about that.
Yeah, and one thing I would say for your younger athletes that are under 11, I would stick to the lower levels of the FIFA 11 that Eric discussed, because a lot of times for those younger athletes, their tendons or their joints may not be ready for some of those specific movements, but sticking with level 1 and 2 for now for those really young soccer players, I don't see anything wrong with that. Those are all movements, and those are all stresses that their tissues should be able to respond to without issue.
And I will kind of actually piggyback off of that as well. I would also say probably for that population, more of the emphasis would be on form as opposed to can you do it the specified amount of times or specified duration, but more of are they actually using the right muscles and able to get into the correct positions that the sport may demand of their body.
Good quality movements, yeah.
So I coach girls, and I have a team right now that they're in a growing stage right now. And I often joke about them having the baby giraffe syndrome. And one of my concerns is when they come back to the field, how knees in particular, obviously, are a big concern. So I know FIFA 11 addresses some of those things. It would be helpful to have something along those lines, would you say, or just focus on some of those FIFA 11 drills to work on so they can, because ideally I would imagine you want to do it more than just once a week.
Yeah.
This is something they can focus on throughout the week.
Yeah. Certainly, like, so, you know, unfortunately in the female athlete, you know, there's some things that they have to deal with that are the male athletes don't, you know, wider hips, typically the proximal hip muscles are going to be weaker. And again, more valgus, or their knees kind of knocking knees a little more. So I think the emphasis on the FIFA 11 with the Nordic hamstring curls, that's a huge one, because the hamstring assists to prevent that tibia, or that leg bone, from going forward, which is what the function of the ACL is. So Nordic hamstring curls, it's a good eccentric overload exercise, and I love that for ACL prevention. But also, you know, there's a lot of research as it relates to what, you know, when one is landing from a jump, on what their knee angles are. So really doing a lot of education as it relates to landing from a jump is really important in the female athlete, because if you land with your knees too extended, then that's going to be problematic, and you need to be able to make sure you're landing, you know, with a little more flexion in the knee and be able to absorb that force. So exercises to strengthen the hip muscles, and also the core, which I just feel like I just got finished talking about the FIFA 11, but are all going to be very important. And I can't wait to get these videos to you. They're going to be really good, and they're going to be a great complement to the FIFA 11.
Yes, and I completely agree with everything that Bobby said.
Thank you.
Awesome. That's very helpful.
Yeah. So let's see.
Any other straggling questions?
And I will say one more thing too. On the FIFA 11, there was an exercise that said heel raises with knees bent. I will tell you too, that is a movement, and that is an exercise, and that is a muscle that is so often neglected, and there's not enough attention paid to it, because usually we're doing heel raises with our knees straight as opposed to our knees being bent. And when you think about running, or you think about landing from a jump, you have to, your toes hit first, and then your heels are coming down. You have to decelerate that movement, right? And that muscle, it's called your soleus muscle, SOLEUS. If you want to get bored and you want to do some Googling and learning about that muscle and how it's one of the most important muscles of the lower extremity, do yourself a favor and do it, because that exercise, heel raises with your knee bent, I do it with all my athletes. I kill it with all my ACL patients and athletes. I do a lot of single leg movements with that. And there's actually a really good exercise in the videos I'll send you that's working on that muscle. So.
Looking forward to those videos. Sound good.
Fun.
Any other questions? No. So we are recording this as well. So this will go out to the entire club as well and made available to everybody. And once we get the videos, we'll make sure to pass that on to everyone. Looking forward to that. It's good information.
Great. And I guess it was one thing I will say. You know, Eric and I both work for Body Central Physical Therapy, and I'm working there full time right now. But, you know, when the season, you know, begins, I'll be back out on the field and be in the training room. But I'll still be in the clinic a few days during the week. But I just want to let it be known that, you know, our clinic, we are, you know, practicing extreme measures and the recommended guidelines by the CDC. Everyone's having their temperature taken when they come in. Patients with other comorbidities, they're not, you know, they're being asked not to come into the clinic. So everybody's spaced out, tables are spaced out. So in the event anyone needs anything before things, you know, get somewhat back to normal, we are still seeing patients and we are open. So feel free to schedule, or even if you just want a consultation, call and we'll get you in, and we'll one of us will take a look at you. So just wanted to let that be known.
And I'm also going to just kind of piggyback off of that and just say that right now, while you're not in season, while you're not quite as busy, would be a good time as well if you have any little nagging knee injuries or ankle injuries or anything like that, just to even, like Bobby said, come in, get looked at, have a consult, have an eval, and just see if that's something that actually needs to be fixed. You know, if there's things that you can do to improve that so that you are 100% ready for when the season begins again.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. We really appreciate you coming on and sharing with us. Definitely Body Central is a sponsor of the club, and we highly recommend Body Central. They have a great staff, and they've been extremely helpful and provided an enormous amount of information to the club through various meetings, of course, like this. This is also very helpful. So we're really thankful to Body Central, and thank you, Eric and Bobby, for coming on. And if there are no further questions, Bobby and Eric, if there's any last things you want to say?
I think I'm finished, Eric.
Okay. I just want to say thank you for having us, and we look forward to more of these things in the future with different events and partnerships and everything along those lines.
Absolutely.
Yeah, looking forward to getting out and catching some matches here soon, hopefully. So
that'd be nice. That'd be nice.
Certainly.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thanks for logging on and listening to this. Once again, this is recorded, so we'll get it out for everybody. Thank you all for logging in. Have a good night.
Good night, everyone.
Goodbye.